We continue now at the top of Daf Kuf Tes Zayin Amud Beis in Mesechet Yevamos. This is Yevamos Daf 116b. On the previous summit, there was a machlokas amoraim. Why is it that in a situation of an argument between the husband and the wife that we do not believe the wife when she says that her husband has died? And so there were two opinions. One opinion is the reason is because she would lie in such a situation. She doesn't mind prohibiting herself from her husband. And the other answer is that the reason why we don't believe her is because she just says her husband has died, even though she doesn't know that, because she's not so careful in a situation where she does not like him. And so the Gemara wanted to know what is the practical difference between these two approaches. And the Gemara answers, Ika Benayu, the difference is, Da'argil hu ketata, let's say he started the fight. In a situation where he started the fight, so in that case, she really still loves her husband, and therefore she's not going to lie. But on the other hand, since he does not like her, since he started the fight, so therefore she might not be so careful to make sure that he actually died in a situation when she says that he died. And the Gemara continues, they had the following question, what would be the halacha in a case where one aide says that the husband died, but again it's a situation where they are quarreling? And what's the reason why one aide is believed? Because something that might be revealed later to be a lie, so the person is not going to lie. So here also he's not going to lie. We should believe the aide. Maybe the reason why an aide echad is believed, because she's careful, and we say she's not totally relying on the aide echad. She's also careful when she remarries to make sure that her husband has died. But over here, since there's an argument between them, she won't be careful when she remarries. And the Gemara says, the Gemara leaves this as a question. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. The Mishnah said, Rabbi Yehuda Omer Lio Lameina V'chula. Rabbi Yehuda said that she's never believed unless she comes in crying and it looks like she's mourning. Otherwise, we don't believe her that her husband died. And the Gemara says, Tanya, we learned in a brayso, Amru Lo Rabbi Yehuda. The Chachamim said to Rabbi Yehuda, Lidvarecha, according to your words, Pikachas Tinase, a woman who's smart shall be able to remarry. Shota Lo Tinase, and a woman who's not smart won't be able to remarry. In other words, a woman will realize, the smart woman will realize she has to look like she's in mourning, and the other woman who doesn't realize it, maybe her husband really did die, but we're not going to believe her because she doesn't look like she's in mourning. So rather the Chacham say it doesn't matter whether she looks like she's mourning, she doesn't look like she's in mourning. In both cases, Tinase, we believe her, and she's allowed to remarry. And the Gemara continues, there was a story of a woman who came before the court of Rabbi Yehuda. Amri lo, so the people that were over there, they said to her, Safti balech, kari monech, sisri maziech. They said, eulogize your husband, tear your clothing, unbind your hair, make it look like you're in mourning, so that Rabbi Yehuda permits you to remarry. Gemara says, Alfu shikra, what? They were teaching her how to lie? So the Gemara says, no, inu karabanan sevirelu. Those people, they actually held like the Rabbanan, that doesn't matter if she looks like she's in mourning or not. But Amri, but they said, Tavid hachi, you should do this, ki echi de l'sharia, so that Rabbi Yehuda will permit you, because that happens to be his shita. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah, Beis Hillel Omer and Beis Hillel say, Lo shamana, we did not hear that we believe a woman when she says that her husband died, Elo beba min hakotzer, unless she's coming from the grain harvest, Uva Osa Medina, and it's in the same country, Uchemaisa Shahaya, like the story that actually happened. The story will be explained in the Gemara. And the Mishnah continues, Amr Lahem Beis Shammai, so Beis Shammai said to them, to Beis Hillel, Achas haba min hakotzir, it doesn't matter if she comes from the grain harvest, V'achas haba min hazesim, or if she comes from the olive harvest, V'achas haba min habotzir, or if she comes from the grape harvest, V'achas haba min Medina leMedina, and it doesn't matter if she comes from one country to another country. Lo divru chachamim bekotzir ela behova, when the chachamim spoke about the grain harvest, it was just the story that actually occurred. And the Mishnah concludes, Chazru Beis Hillel lahoros k'Beis Shammai. In the end, Beis Hillel retracted, and they taught like Beis Shammai. And Rashi over here says, Elo beba min hakotzer, she has to come from the grain harvest. Shekach hoya hamaisa, that's the story. Kedamrina lekamon, like we're going to say later on. V'lo itiru chacham ela dugmaso, and so Beis Hillel say the chacham only allowed similar situations. Sheyayadav or karov lana. The point is it should be something close to us. Umirtasan, therefore she's afraid. V'lo meshakar, and we know she's not going to lie. Avol medina sayom ein nemenes. If she comes from far away and reports this, she's not going to be believed. Ela behova ma'isa shayakach hoya. This was a story. V'wadin lechol makomos, and the same would be in all situations, in all places. In other words, the point is, it has to be kim ma'isa shahaya. And the Gemara says, Tanya, we learned in a brayso, Amru lahem Beis Shammai leBeis Hillel. Beis Shammai said to Beis Hillel, L'divreichem, according to you, ein li ela katzir chitim. I only know that we should believe the woman in a situation of the wheat harvest. Katzir sa'orim minayin. How do we know? By the barley harvest. V'ein li ela kotzer, and I only know it's true by the grain. Botzer, let's say we're talking about grapes, or mose, goder, oder, let's say we're talking about olives, let's say we're talking about dates, let's say we're talking about figs. Minayin, how do you know over there also that you're going to believe the woman? Elamaisa shaya b'kotzer, rather the story, the incident that happened happened to be by the grain harvest. V'uadin l'kulu, and the same would be true by all of them. Hachanami, and here also, Ma'isa Shaya Bosa Medina, the story that happened, it happened to be within the same country. V'uadin l'kulu, the same would be in all situations, even if it's different countries. And the Brisa continues, Beis Hillel responds to Beis Shammai, Ba'osa Medina, if you're in the same country, the Shchichi Inshi, where there are people that are traveling all around, so Mirza, so she's afraid to lie because her lie might end up being exposed. Mi Medina le Medina Acheres, but if it's from one country to another country, the Lo Shchichi Inshi, where there's not a lot of people who frequent both places, Lo Mirza, she's not afraid, she doesn't think her lie is going to be exposed, and that's why Beis Hillel say that we don't believe her if she's coming from another country. Beis Shammai respond, no, Hachanami Shchichi Shayrasa. Here also, there are caravans that go from place to place, and therefore in this situation as well, Mi Medina le Medina, she would be afraid that her lie would be exposed, and so therefore we can believe her. And the Gemara continues, My Maisa Shahaya, what was the incident that occurred? The Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, because Rav Yehuda said in the name of Shmuel, Shilfi Katzir Chitin Haya, it was at the end of the harvest of the wheat. V'halchu asar b'nei Adam liksar chitin, and 10 people went to harvest the wheat. Nashchu nachash le'echad mehen, a snake bit one of them, v'meis, and he died. Uvasa ishto, so his wife came, v'hodia lebezin, and she let Bezin know what happens. V'sholchu matzu chidvaren, they sent out messengers and they found that what she said was true. And so ba'osa shah, so at that time Amru, they said, Ha'isha sha'amru meis bali, if a woman says my husband died, tinase, she's allowed to remarry, she's believed. Meis bali, if she says my husband died and she did not have children, tesiabim, she's allowed to do yibum. And the Gemara continues, Neimar Rabbi Chananya ben Akiva v'Rabbanan beplugsa de Beis Shammai u'Beis Hillel kamiflagi. Let us say that Rabbi Chananya ben Akiva and the Rabbanan, they're arguing in the same machlokus as Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel in our Mishnah. The Tanya, as we learned in a Brisa, Lo yisa adam mechatos ve'fer chatos, a person should not carry the waters of purification or the ashes of purification. This is talking about from the Parah Aduma in order to purify someone who's tamei meis. V'yavirem beyarden u'v'sfina, the person should not cross them over the Yarden in a boat. V'lo yamod b'tzad zev v'yizrok he shouldn't stand on one side of the river and throw it to the other side. He shouldn't float them across the water. And he shouldn't ride them not on an animal, not on his friend, unless his feet are actually touching the land, touching the earth. He is allowed to cross them over using a bridge, whether it's the Yarden, whether it's other rivers. Rabbi Chananya ben Akiva says, Lo amru ela Yarden uvesvina. The only prohibition is by the Yarden on a ship, like the exact incident that occurred. So it seems exactly the same machlokus. We had an incident that occurred, which is the motivation for this gezerah. And Rabbi Chananya ben Akiva says the prohibition is only things that are similar to that exact maisa. And the other opinion, the first opinion, says no, it's not true. The gezerah is going to be expanded to other cases as well. And the Gemara says, Leimer Rabbanan Damri ke Beis Shammai. So let's say that the Rabbanan, they say like Beis Shammai, that it expands to other cases. Rabbi Chananya ben Akiva Damri ke Beis Hillel, and Rabbi Chananya ben Akiva, he says like Beis Hillel, that if there's something that's based on a certain incident, so we base it exactly on that incident. And so the Gemara says, Amri loch Rabbanan, no, the Rabbanan can say to you, Anon Damri non afke Beis Hillel. We really follow even Beis Hillel. Adkan lo kamar Beis Hillel hasam elam mishum demirtas b'makam karov, mirtas b'makam rochak lo mirtas. Beis Hillel only said what they say because she's afraid if she's in a nearby area, she's afraid that the lie might be exposed, but she's not afraid if she's far away. But over here, Mali Yardin, Mali Shar Naharos, what is the logic to distinguish between the Yarden and other rivers? There's no logic to distinction, to make a distinction, and that's why there is no distinction. And the Gemara continues, Rabbi Chananya ben Akiva Amar Loch, Rabbi Chananya ben Akiva will say to you, Ano da Amri Afla Beis Shammai, I can follow even Beis Shammai. Adkan lo ka Amri Beis Shammai, Hasam Beis Shammai only said it over there in the Mishnah, Elamishum di daiko mitzvah, because the woman is careful when she gets remarried, so we believe her. Mali makom karov, mali makom rachak. What's the difference if she's from nearby or she's from far away? But over here, mishum ma'isa shahaya b'yarden uv'sfina dehave ma'isa gazer rabbanan, because there was an incident that occurred in the Yarden in a ship, that was the ma'isa, so therefore that's gazer rabbanan, that's the rabbanan's decree. B'shar naharos, but in other rivers, the lo have ma'isa, where there was no such incident, lo gazer rabbanan, the rabbanan did not make a decree. And the Gemara continues, my ma'isa shahaya, what exactly was the incident that occurred? The Yomer Rav Yehuda Marav, because Rav Yehuda said in the name of Rav, Ma'isa ba'adam sheyamavir mechatos ve'efer chatos b'yardin uv'sfina. There was a story where a person was transferring the waters of purification and the ashes of purification in the Yarden in a ship. V'nimtza kazayis min hameis tochav bekarkoish shel sfina. It turned out that there was a kazayis of a corpse that was in the floor of the ship. B'yosa shah. So at that moment, Amru, they said, Lo yisa adam mechatos ve'efer chatos v'yavirem b'yardin uv'sfina. A person should not carry carry the waters of purification and the ashes of purification and transfer them in the Yarden in a ship. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah, Beis Shammai Omer and Beis Shammai say, Tinase v'titol ksubasa. This woman who says that her husband died and we let her remarry, not only can she remarry, she's also allowed to collect her ksuba. Beis Hillel Omer and Beis Hillel say, Tinase, she can remarry, v'lo titol ksubasa, but she should not take her ksuba. Amru lahem Beis Shammai, so Beis Shammai said to Beis Hillel, Hitartem erva chamura, you're allowing arayas, which is strict, meaning you're assuming that she's not an Eishes Ish and you're letting her get remarried. V'lo natir maman hakal, so we should not allow money which is far more lenient. Why not give her the ksuba? Amru lahem Beis Hillel, so Beis Hillel said to them, Matzina we find, and we'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Kuf Yud Zayin Amud Aleph.